When tales of mythic warriors are passed down through time, they often speak of men forged from steel and driven by something deeper than pride, something primal, almost divine. In the modern world of blood and sweat, if there ever was a man who embodied the wrath of Zeus and the statue-like perfection of Apollo, it was Mariusz Pudzianowski. Born in Poland, he wasn't just a strongman, he was a force of nature, sculpted by willpower and hardened through relentless discipline. Winner of the world's strongest man, Mariusz stood at the summit of a sport most humans would dare not even dream of. But that summit, for him, was merely a stepping stone. To some, dominating the world of strength sports would be enough. But not for Mariusz. The iron was no longer heavy enough. The spotlight of strongman arenas dimmed under the call of a new battlefield MMA, where others feared injury, humiliation, or the unknown. Mariusz saw opportunity. He didn't merely swap barbells for gloves, he exchanged comfort for combat. And in doing so, he stepped from legend into living warfare. From the outset, it was clear that this Polish powerhouse wasn't entering the MMA cage as a gimmick. He was there to conquer. And his first true trial came in the form of Ousmane Dia, a 350-pound African juggernaut who looked like he was carved from the savannas of Senegal. Towering, undefeated, terrifying Ousmane wasn't just a man. He was a mountain. But mountains crumble. As the fight opened, Ousmane charged forward. Confident, his sheer mass would crush the man before him. Yet in one flash of movement, the behemoth collapsed, felled by a single precise strike. The cage fell silent. Mariusz had arrived. But if brute strength was the first test, technical cunning was the second. Brazilian jiu-jitsu maestro Yusuke Kawaguchi, known for submissions so lethal they bordered on artistry, faced off with the Polish brute. This wasn't about who could lift more or punch harder. This was a duel of instincts and intelligence. Still, when the moment came, Mariusz didn't hesitate. He struck like a hammer of fate, his fists guiding his foe into unconsciousness. Another fight, another victory. But this wasn't luck. This was methodical destruction. His meteoric rise through the ranks was as dramatic as it was brutal. Opponents tried to outlast him, to exploit weaknesses they believed hid beneath his sculpted form. They believed wrong. Marcin Najman, a fellow Pole and the first to face Mariusz in MMA, discovered this the hard way. Technique meant little when raw power was used like a weapon of war. Najman's legs were turned to pulp, his defense shattered, his pride crushed under the storm of low kicks. The referee, merciful, perhaps saved him. But the world was now on notice. The strongman wasn't just surviving, he was dominating. What followed was a whirlwind of chaos and triumph. Within months, Mariusz entered the cage, twice taking down Japan's Yusuke Kawaguchi like he was tearing through a slab of fresh sashimi. But victory has a cost. Just 2 weeks later, he met defeat at the hands of former UFC champion Tim Sylvia. The taste of loss was bitter. The path forward, however, remained clear. By 2010, he was face to face with Butterbean, a legend in his own right. A man who had defied physical expectations and carved a legacy out of resilience and raw boxing grit. When the two giants collided, fans expected a clash of titans. They got a beat. Mariusz unleashed a torrent of fury, hammering Butterbean until the referee was forced to halt what many called a one-sided slaughter. This wasn't just victory, it was vindication. But it was in his battle with Bob Sapp that Mariusz's transformation reached its crescendo. Sapp was a monster from another dimension, part athlete, part comic book villain. He had power, fame, Hollywood roles, and a reputation for unhinged violence. Before their match, he taunted Mariusz with theatrics, belittling the Polish titan with mockery. Mariusz, and cold, didn't respond. He waited, and when the bell rang, he answered with fists. Sapp's bluster melted the moment he felt the first hammer fist. Within minutes, Mariusz had dissected him. Sapp's grotesque physique, fueled by rumors of chemical enhancements, crumbled under the pressure. Even his own corner had to stop the beating. It was a fall from grace for Sapp. For Mariusz, it was the final nail in doubt's coffin. From there, Mariusz entered a phase of his career defined not just by violence but by evolution. He faced men of all shapes, sizes, and disciplines. The mad Greek Christos Poliaphus, who shared the ancient lineage of Heracles, but none of the strength, was dismantled. Sean McCorkle, a skyscraper of a man known as Big Sexy, tried to use his height and submission game to suffocate the strongman. For a moment, it nearly worked. But Mariusz, rising from the edge of defeat like a revenant, turned the tide and crushed his opponent with relentless ground and pound. Even his fellow Polish heroes weren't safe. Paweł Nastula, Olympic judo champion and national icon, stood across from Mariusz in a bout that turned into a war of willpower. Nastula had the technique, but Mariusz had fury. And when the judges tried to rob him with an additional round, he answered not with protest but with punishment. But in the fight game, no warrior escapes unscathed. Losses followed, some surprising, others agonizing. Yet Mariusz never ran. He healed, adapted, and returned. His showdown with the feared Gracie clan's rolls. Gracie was short but devastating. Mariusz stunned the Brazilian submission master with a jaw-rattling finish, a reminder that raw strength when directed with precision, can silence even the most legendary of bloodlines. Then came the underestimation. After suffering losses to Peter Graham and Marcin Aralski, many whispered that the Titan had fallen. His age, his injuries, his past everything seemed to suggest the end was near. But legends don't fade, they evolve. And so, in December 2016, Mariusz faced Popek, monster rapper, showman, and street fighter. From the press conference to the first punch, tension surged. Mariusz unleashed his wrath, battering Popek until only the referee's intervention saved the rapper from permanent damage. His next major challenge came in the form of Tiberius Kowalczyka, former strongman rival turned fighter. On paper, it was a perfect storm. Strength versus strength. Pride versus pride. The fight unfolded like a Greek tragedy. Mariusz appeared to struggle early, but when his fists began to fall, they spoke louder than strategy ever could. Kowalczyk was left bloodied and broken, his face reduced to a strawberry pulp. Years passed, victories piled up, yet Mariusz never grew complacent. He faced Jay Silva and earned a majority decision. He stood against the monstrous Karol Bad and then against the surging talent of Szymon Kolecki only to fall to injury. But once again, where others saw the end, he saw a new beginning. After a grueling rehabilitation, he returned to face Urko Jun, a knockout artist from Bosnia. It was a chess match disguised as a fistfight. Jun brought speed and youth, but brought war. He lured, confused, and eventually battered Jun into submission, painting his face with fists as if the canvas of the cage was begging for art and blood. In a follow-up bout against Nikola Milanovic, a man who traded abs for adipose, Mariusz didn't hold back. As Milanovic charged like a man chasing a buffet, the Dominator turned him into ground chuck. But perhaps the most cinematic duel of Mariusz's career came against Wakushi Yurkowski. Known for knocking out 3 opponents in one night, Yurkowski had a cult following. The Ergo Arena shook as the giants collided. Yurkowski struck with the fury of a video game character on full combo mode, but it wasn't enough. Mariusz adapted, took him down, and obliterated him with elbows and brute force. The legend of Yurkowski dimmed that night. Mariusz didn't. Jeswini erased his opponent's will to continue fighting altogether. Since then, he has suffered more defeats. Against Michał Materla, against Artur Spilka, but none of it has stopped him. Because for Mariusz, this was never about titles or records. It was about evolution. It was about facing the impossible and making it yield. When you look at Mariusz Pudzianowski's journey, you don't just see a man who shattered stereotypes. You see someone who took destiny by the throat. From lifting the world's heaviest stones to trading blows with elite fighters, he didn't just fight opponents. He fought fate and won. So, if you've ever doubted whether strength, spirit, and transformation can coexist in one man, just remember Mariusz. He didn't walk the path. He carved it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the journey of one of the most powerful athletes in combat sports history, drop a like, subscribe for more, and tell us in the comments, what was your favorite Mariusz moment? Which opponent gave him the toughest challenge? We want to hear from you. Because here, every story is a battle and every battle, a legend in the making.